I've always been an alchemist, transmuting what remains after destruction, creating something new, hopefully infusing the innocence, love, and light that was lost, building with broken shards that make my hands bleed. Loss doesn't just come from death, but from what was supposed to be and never will. That feeling of grief swells, and then the almost unthinkable question hits. What next? Welcome to the Obliterated Place for all the brokenhearted, a space dedicated to creating something from the unrecognizable remnants of loss in its many forms. A place to witness one another's grief and choose to honor grief through our actions, big and small. I'm Kaye Steinsapir. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, and welcome back to The Obliterated Place. I'm your host, Kaye Steinsapir, and today I'm here with my friend, Carla Liber. Hi, Carla.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. So happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, audience, thanks for coming back and joining us. Carla and I know each other because, unfortunately, we both lost our daughters. And I think, Carla, I relate so much to you because Sammy was closer to Molly's age. You know, it's like, obviously there aren't a lot of people that relate in general, but then also, losing a teenage daughter, there's just something unique about that. And I feel like with you, I'm with someone who understands that particular heartbreak.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just, it's like they're right on the precipice of coming into their own. Yeah. And it's just, you're right there and, they're discovering who they are and there's so many changes. And just to have it cut short like that.
Just cut short.
So tragically and so fast.
Yeah.
Is just hard to wrap your head around.
We were just in Japan, as you know, and there were moments on the trip where it's just me and my husband and our sons, and there were moments where I would see other moms with their daughters, doing the tea house and looking at all the geisha, all the beautiful dresses and all those things. It's like, and I just look around, or at Disney, I was with a friend and her daughter, and also her husband and son were there, but she and her daughter would go off and do like Rapunzel and all those different things, and I was just like constantly reminded, like, I don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and that's what's so hard too, because it's what I have found, and will be, we just passed the 20-month mark yesterday, is that there's so many little things throughout the day and throughout these experiences where you're constantly reminded and it comes up. And it could be something as, you just see your friend go, the mother-daughter thing that they get to experience that you don't. And that's, in your face. And just all those little things. It's like 1,000 things a day.
It's like 1,000 paper cuts, like constantly, except obviously much more painful, but Molly would be, entering her senior year of high school this coming year. And so it's just like, oh my God, it's like her peers, her friends taking the SAT, and they're going to be finding out from colleges and all of that. And I'm just bracing myself for like the hell that I'm going to be in. I mean, which is, I already am, like with regard to that, right? It's a comfort to be with her friends. Mm-hmm. It definitely is. But it's also just like, oh my God, they've grown and changed, and they're experiencing all these things and going off. And it's like she's just forever 12.
Yeah. And that's so hard. So do you see her friends a lot?
I see her best friend, and I am really grateful we've maintained that connection. Mm-hmm. They were in the accident together. So obviously, that was really difficult in some ways. It was never difficult to stay close to her at all. We always wanted that, but it was hard for all of us. We all had to work through that together. And I'm really glad we did work through it together.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was so much healing too that goes on with that.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary. And yeah, I have found, to your point of how similar in age they were. So this would be Sammy's senior year in high school. And so when the accident happened, it was August 8th, 2024. So she was going into her junior year. And so last year was really difficult because it was the first year, and seeing how all the kids have grown even just in that short amount of time. And the focus then is on college and, working hard towards college. And to your point about the SATs and ACTs, and that's what we were, college counselors, that's what we were talking about that summer.
Of course.
And preparing for. And now, just with all the senior things that you're talking about, her friends they know what colleges they're going to. Next week is prom.
Yeah.
And then starts all like the senior celebrations and activities and then graduations. So it's definitely a lot. But I will say this, the school and her friends and the community have been so inclusive and really lovely about making Sammy a part of everything. And so that's everything to me.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely.
been so important.
That's so important.
Yeah.
We didn't have that as much because Molly was a new student at Geffen, and it was during the pandemic. Yeah. So she was only ever there on Zoom. And so it was just like, it wasn't the same, and we had our other friends from Marquez, but again, everyone had been in COVID, like isolation for a long time. So people had kind of, distanced literally and, figuratively, right? So it's just like that wasn't as easy for us. But, that's part of the thing we do with Molly's Foundation and having the youth board is like being able to bring those people, back in and part of her legacy, like her classmates and people she grew up with and everything. So that's been really healing.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you've also been, so vocal and so out there with the whole just journey that you've been on and making sure that, people know about Molly and that she forever lives on. And that's what we're doing with SAMI and the SAMI Foundation. And we started that actually 4 months after the accident because we didn't know what to do with our grief. Yeah. And I'm sure you felt the same way. Yeah. And people didn't know what to do, and they wanted to show up for us, and they were coming by with food and flowers. And we had so many trees donated in her honor, which was lovely and amazing. But we thought, okay, let's do something purposeful that we can start for Sammy and something that really kind of shines a light on who she was and what she was interested in, and which was art and music. Yeah. And just put that out in the world and just see what we can do. And I have to tell you, that is what motivates us to get out of bed every day.
Yeah, I totally relate.
Right?
Yeah,
just knowing that you're pushing forward and making a difference on their behalf with their spirit involved.
Absolutely. And what you're doing is so beautiful. When we traveled to Japan, we brought with us one of your kits of Sammy's art supplies and everything. So, it felt like she was with us there. And our son Eli loves art too. So, he knows about Sammy, and we talk about her, and it's good in a way. I hadn't thought about it this way, but it's like it's good for them to feel less isolated, and like you feel like, and my kids have, especially my older son, has experienced this where it's like people treat you a little differently, because it's like you're the kid who had a sister who died, and that sort of becomes part of your identity, which, especially as a teenager, is not really what you want. Right. So in a way, it's like knowing and being close with other families who have lost a child makes us just feel more normal. Yes. Like, in a way, and so talking about Sammy, it's like similar to Molly, and it's not, especially for him, because it's never been unusual for him. It's like he was the child that was like, Molly's not gone, she's right here. Like, and everyone thought it was odd, and strange, but it's like he was so connected to her, and he still is, but as he gets older, he's less, vocal about it. But it was so interesting.
I love that. Was he spiritual kind of before, or had that kind of way about him?
No, but he was, Eli, we always knew he was kind of a miracle child, It's like he was the third child that we weren't sure we were going to have a third child. And I just kept having this overwhelming feeling that would not stop, that like someone else wants to come into this family. They won't leave me alone. I mean, it was just literally like, hello, I'm coming into this family. Like I couldn't shake it.
Yeah.
And so, I think if either of us had been like, no, absolutely not, we wouldn't have, but neither of us were in that category. But we were, our kids were 5 and 7. And so we'd given away all the baby stuff and all that. So he was sort of a miracle baby because he was so, just from the moment he was born, he has this energy about him that is just so special and bright and happy, and like just he's the one that keeps us all, he's so buoyant and keeps us all afloat in a way. It's like he kind of makes it hard to stay sad because he's so, you just look at him and you smile, and when I was diagnosed with cancer, he was only 6 months old, not even 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
And it was because I was breastfeeding that I discovered that I had the lump. So in some ways, he helped to save me. But going through all of that experience while he was an infant, it was so difficult, but also like he was such a like ray, like not even a ray, like a huge beam of like light.
Yeah.
And so then when Molly passed, he was only 4, and they were so close. They were incredibly close, and they look so much alike. And he has so much of her in him. It's like uncanny.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, just even lately, he walks around snapping his fingers. Molly used to do that. And it's like, he has no idea of that, obviously. And it's an odd little like, I don't know, thing to do, right?
Right.
She was always like, she's just always like keeping her hands busy. She would crochet. She would always have to have her hands doing stuff, and or she would tap things, and she always snapped her fingers, and he started doing it. It's like he has a lot of similarities to her. But after she passed, he started sleeping in her room. And before, he had never wanted to sleep in a room alone. And he was like, I'm not alone. I'm here with her.
She's here.
Yeah. I mean, he was so comforted to be in her room, and he never left. He stayed in that room.
Oh, he did.
It eventually became his room. Eventually, like years later, we did. It was just such a hard process, and my husband, my older son, weren't ready to change it. So for a long time, he just slept in it as her room, like as it was. And then eventually, years into the process, I redid it for him, but kept some of the elements. So it was like still her place, but it was his place. So
how did that is actually an interesting point that you bring up. How did you, what did you do with Molly's clothes? And I know you said some of the things you kept there, so a part of her essence and was still in the room, but when did you decide, and how did you decide to do things like her clothes and other things?
So hard. Oh, I mean, as I'm sure you know, it's so difficult. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Molly had a ton of clothes. She, I loved buying her beautiful things. And so she had a lot of clothes, and she had all these girly things and all the things that she collected, and so it was just, God, I mean, with the clothes, at one point pretty early on, a friend of ours offered to have a quilt made of her clothes.
Oh, nice.
And that was so beautiful, and it was a comfort, to have it.
Yeah.
And it turned out really nicely. So I ended up taking a lot more of the clothes because I still had some. So I ended up making more quilts.
I love that.
So we ended up having one, like at our cabin we had one. And so it's like we felt like we had her there.
Yes.
So we, I gave one to her friend, just like we did that with some of the things. We have
so beautiful.
a younger niece who loves Molly. And so she was thrilled to get Molly's things.
Yeah.
You know, some of her stuff, she still uses it. And some of the kids from Theater Palisades were over, and like I gave one of the girls like Molly's jacket that she loved, and she really treasured it. So it was kind of like that. But my husband and my older son really just, they had a lot of grief associated with things,
The clothes
with
and her
the
things.
And so it was like really difficult. I remember John coming home one day and he got so angry with me that like the closet in Molly's room, it was like a mess when she passed, like the floor. There was just stuff everywhere. She had all her like, she's so funny. She was always like snacking. She had all her like snack wrappers. We found all her stash, you know, afterwards.
The secret stash.
Yeah, like she's got gum stuck everywhere. I mean, we would still find gum in our house in the Palisades. Like, so you know, he got really upset with me because I picked up the stuff on the floor of the closet because I was like kind of organizing it and deciding what to keep and what to do with. And he's like, I wasn't prepared for that. Like I want it the way she left it.
Right. Like it's almost a museum in some ways.
I know. And that's why I tried to say this cannot be a shrine. We can't do that, you know? So it was, I had to do all of that alone.
Wow. I mean, that's hard. It's definitely, and grief processing is so individual and can be so isolating and alone. You know, in your house, you can, I mean, so many people can grieve differently. And that was the case for us. You know, Ava and Rod had their own path and I had my own path that was very different with how we were dealing with things. But about her room specifically, we definitely have left it the way she left it. Not ready yet to go through it, but I go in there all the time. It still smells like her.
Aww.
And her essence is still very much a part of that room. And she had some clothes on the floor in her closet and I'll just, you know, go in there and just smell them. And
are they still where she left them on the floor?
it's where she left them.
I don't want my husband to listen to this because he's going to be like, see?
Well, you know, it's everyone's, I've heard, it's so different. I've heard other people that the next day they had to give everything away and get it out of the room and move it because it was too hard, too in their face. And, you know, it's just, everyone's so different and the timeline's so different. I think at some point we will be doing something with the clothes and her things. And what was so interesting, well, also I think it's very hard for Rod, my husband, and Ava to go in there. So the door stays closed. Yeah. And I go in there all the time.
Right.
And I just want to feel close to her there, like her water bottle that she still has on her nightstand and her jewelry and all those things. And, you know, she had a new scent that summer, a new perfume. So Sammy she loved perfume. She loved to have, I mean, this was important for her in 9th grade. She had to have her own distinct scent.
I love that.
Said,
her signature scent.
Her signature scent. And her friends had their scent. So she was like, Mom, I'm going to have my own scent. And she loved the Urban Outfitters perfume that they sell there. It's just this French perfume that they have. And that became her signature scent in 9th grade.
Love it.
And then 9th and 10th.
Yeah.
And then that summer, she was kind of going through like a metamorphosis in some ways. And she says, I'm ready for a new scent that's more mature. And so Marc Jacobs, Perfect, ended up being the signature scent. And so there's still that bottle in the room. And I'll go in there and I'll spray it in the room. And I got myself a bottle. And I was not a big perfume person before. Now I wear it every day.
I love it.
So her signature scent is now something
Your signature scent.
I'm now connected to.
Yeah.
And so we made, and another thing that Sammy loved also was candles. And so right away I knew we had to make candles.
Right.
And that is, she always lit a candle. She wanted, her friends were coming over, light candles in the house, light candles in my room. So it was like definitely her thing.
Yeah.
And so we made candles. We put her signature on it.
That's really nice.
And her favorite color at the time and her favorite scent. And so lighting that also feels like a connection to her. Yeah. But yeah, it's just those little things. It's almost like those little traditions, you know, we do to just keep them close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like those things are so important.
So important. Yeah. And also talking about them.
Yes.
I don't know if you feel, well, actually, we're probably on the same page because you named the foundation after her and we named the foundation after SAMI.
Yes.
Which is an acronym actually for her name. It's Supporting Art, Music, and Imagination.
Oh,
So
I love that.
each of the letters stand for something. And in some ways that we get to talk about her every day because we bring up her name like
Yes.
you do with Molly.
Most people call me Molly, by the way. Yeah.
Well,
You do.
actually,
Yeah,
it's really
you
funny
did.
you say that. I called you Molly so much.
Which until I said that, I forgot you did because so many people do.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love hearing that because I thought I was the only one and I felt badly. I'm like, oh gosh,
No.
I know your name is Kaye, but Molly is so very present and so much a part of, just how you're moving forward and moving with. And so like SAMI is that. No one's called me SAMI yet, but I wouldn't be, offended if they did.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So
It's so important to keep them present and to talk about them. And that's part of, why I wanted to do the podcast, is I think sometimes we can be sort of isolated, and it's almost like I had the feeling when I was going through cancer, like that people would look at me like, oh, that poor mom, that poor lady, like with the cancer, and like I felt it again after Molly passed, like the look of like, oh, that's like my worst fear, embodied, right?
Right.
And you feel it, you pick up on it. And the truth is that death is part of life. We're all going to die, and some of us have shorter lives, and that's just the way it's always been throughout human history. And there is no reason that, in addition to going through such horrible heartache and longing for the one that you lost, to on top of it have to go through any sort of social isolation or weirdness or awkwardness with the people around you.
Right. And that, it's like, to your point, it's hard enough that you're going through this, incredible trauma and grief and pain and isolation. And then there's another layer on top of that you're dealing with. And we found that to be very true in the beginning, where there's those first moments when you kind of resurface and get back into life. Yeah. And so those moments were really hard. Yeah. And just feeling like you're getting the looks and the sad faces. That was the worst. The
sad faces, I know.
The pouty sad faces. It's like, I know. What can I do with that? Like that's not helping.
It's not helping.
And I just think that people don't know what to do.
Of course.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't want to offend in any way by bringing your child up or talking about it if you're not in that headspace at the moment. But, it's so interesting going through this whole thing about grief. I was that person. I didn't know what to do and what to say. And I, Dr. Laura Berman calls it grief illiterate. Right. And I've adopted that because it's so true in the society and in our culture. So many are grief illiterate because we're not comfortable with dealing, talking, facing, leaning into death. It's just for so many of us. Yeah. And I think, we personify that now, right? Every parent's worst nightmare is losing a child. And when they see us, that's what they think about. But I think it also creates an opportunity to make the conversation more comfortable and more open and giving people permission to talk about it. When we talk about it all the time and freely and openly, and I think that can be really healing for a lot of people too, because I don't know if you felt this way, but as soon as you share something like that, then you have this, it's almost like this unspoken permission to share something intimate or sacred or private. And then people oftentimes will go, well, I had this experience, or, this is what shaped me, and this is how I felt around grief. So
it's true. It's true. Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of like leaning into death.
Yes.
I should have called this podcast Leaning into Death.
Leaning into death and the obliterated place.
Yes. Lean
Absolutely.
into death.
Lean into death, because what you were saying, it's so true. It is a part of the human experience nobody is immune to death or loss. It's going to happen
It's
to
the
everybody.
most certain thing there is, and yet we don't deal with it until we are forced to,
Right.
because it happens to us.
Right.
Because we we lost a family member,
Yeah.
and it would be good if we were like, when last winter when we were in Mexico, my older son Nate he's just like, I really like the fact that here, like, people who died are just part of everything.
Yeah.
Like, you go around and it's like there are all these like benches with people's names on them, and I mean obviously there are here too, but it's just so prevalent there, and not in a sad way. You know, it's just like we were in a cafe and there was a beautiful story about the woman who used to run that cafe who's passed, and culturally I think it's like we're the unusual ones here, in that like we have made this a taboo topic.
Yeah.
And it would be healthier, and I think just why make life harder than it is when we already face challenges we can't control. And so it's like, in the things that we can, why not make it more comfortable, especially with something we're all going to experience.
Absolutely. And also to normalize it, in the sense that because it's something universal, and that's what you're doing here by having the podcast and having those conversations and hearing from different people and their experiences, and that will touch somebody who's listening and can, go, I really can relate to that. And I understand that, and I don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
And really, because it's not a club we want to be a part of, but there is a big community out there of people who have lost, loved ones and, kids in our, situation. Or I guess you find those people.
You find them, yeah.
Right? Because we need it. And that also has been everything, to go to the grief groups and go to those different events where there's moms who have gone through this, and some years out and some more recently, and to just learn and listen and find out, how was their process? What was their journey like? How did they deal with this? And just feel kind of in community for something so tragic.
Absolutely. We were just at a dinner at Elizabeth Koppel's house, who's been a guest on the podcast, and it was so nice to be with everyone. And it's something I didn't experience that as much, because Molly died during the pandemic.
Right.
And so it just wasn't really possible. Things were not happening. I did a group that was on Zoom, and it was just difficult. But we were talking about before we started recording, like, I like to record live because it's so much, to me, it's like, it's just so much richer and so much more intimate and so much more interesting. And not that you can't have that online, but it's harder.
Yeah.
And especially when you're trying to bond with people over the death of your children. I mean, it's like, I was on the computer, and it was, it was during the pandemic, and my sessions would be like at 4:30 for like 2 hours. And I felt like I got hit by a truck after I got off those Zooms. I was like, oh my God, and I had little boys who were like knocking on the door, Mom, what's for dinner? And I'm like sitting there sobbing, because all my group ever had a chance to really do, even though I was in it for a couple months, because they kept adding members. It took a long time to get a core group formed. And so all we did ever was just go around the circle and tell the story of how the children died.
Oh gosh, that's hard. So keep, it's not like, there's like a different focus at that time. You're brought back to it every time, and then you have to kind of unpack it and unfold it.
And all of the children in the group were, except one was an 18-year-old boy, but everyone else was an adult.
Oh wow.
So we were the only one with like a child, and the only girl.
Oh gosh.
So we just we ended up with a group that was not, we weren't really like cohesive with them. Although we did make some great friends that we kept in touch with, but being at that dinner recently with you guys, and I'm 5 years out, I was like, wow, I actually need this. When we planned to do it again, I was so happy, because I was like, oh my gosh, I actually didn't realize I was missing it until we sat and were together, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, it was very healing to be together in that shared space. Yeah. And even though some of us were meeting each other for the first time, like you and I knew each other, and I had a few friends that I had known before, but meeting new people and hearing their stories and how they're processing is just beneficial. It can't not be, you know? Yeah. And the therapy and the things. And I think it also depends on how ready you are also to face it and deal with it. Because, for example, my husband and my daughter, like she was starting her senior year at school. She had to focus on getting into college.
Yeah.
She had to focus on doing school.
Were they 1 year apart?
They were 22 and a half months apart, but 1 grade year apart.
Right. So they're almost the same, identical as my kids. Mine were 21 months apart, Molly and Nate.
Yeah.
And they could have been 1 year apart, but we made them 2 years apart because Nate was sort of on the cusp. Mm-hmm. And we knew Molly wouldn't want him right behind her.
Yes, definitely. It's like Irish twins.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I didn't realize. Yeah, the exact same as us.
It's a very similar setup.
Yeah.
And so that's challenging because there is that bond being so close, and then, you know, them not getting to experience that year. I think a lot of times for Ava, it was she'll never get to be a senior. She'll never get to do these things that I get to do.
Yeah.
So I have to do it for both of us.
It must be so hard. I mean, I think sibling grief is just not as understood or talked about or addressed as much as
it should
we
be.
need.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find resources even for sibling grief. Like Jill Lipsky, who came on early on, talked about her brother who died, and he was, you know, like early 50s, I think. And she couldn't find any resources for herself for sibling grief. And it's just like, it's unbelievable. I try to even put myself in their position, and it's like unbelievable that, I mean, they didn't know a world without that sibling in it. And then all of a sudden, and in both of our situations, instantaneously pretty much, they were gone.
They were gone. And it's just like, you live in this before and you live in this after. Mm-hmm. It's the date before and the day after. Your life.
That's what this podcast is about. That's why it's called The Obliterated Place, because it's like it's about, and it's not only death, but the whatever it is that happens that creates that before and after for you. You know, and in my life now, a lot of people, it's like the Palisades fire. It's like before and after times, you know, and it's so different, and everything is measured that way.
Absolutely. And like you said, there's so many different, it could be anything, you know, anything, any traumatic event or life-changing event. And, you know, ours, we had no preparation for. It was just instant and shocking and out of body. And one day they're functioning, and then the next they're not.
Not only functioning, but they're young and perfect
and
thriving and healthy. And I mean, it's just like
with full lives,
everything ahead of them. I mean, I think about, the fact that like I had been through cancer, and I was so like, you know, my body is like damaged, like, you know, I definitely, and hers was perfect. And it's like, why am I here and she's not?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just the idea of like, Molly she was so cautious, you know, she was very cautious by nature. She had never been seriously ill or injured or anything ever in her life, like nothing. And she was proud of that fact, you know? So it's just like, how does this happen?
How does this happen? Sammy was the same. She was very cautious. She was not, you know, very adventurous.
Right.
And she was an artist. So she sat and she painted and drew. And so she was in, you know, a chair on a table most of the time. And that's pretty safe. And she was a cheerleader. So she did end up pushing herself to do, you know, that was like acrobats and gymnastics. And there is injury with that. But she had never broken a bone. Can you imagine? She, in her 16 years, she never went to the hospital. And never broke a bone.
Yeah.
And then this happens, and it's just, you can't wrap your head around it. It's just so extreme.
It's absolutely just
Yeah.
unfathomable.
And it was one of those things too. It was a little bit out of her wheelhouse. To how she passed away was on an ATV, and it was at the end of summer in August, and we had not traveled that summer, and it was just kind of a quick, short trip to get away and just change the environment, reboot, recharge,
Right.
and then get back into August, which is,
School.
kind of prepare for school month, and book clubs or not book readings. And, she had cheer camp and just all this stuff getting ready. So she had planned the trip, and it was interesting because she usually she would curate a lot of our travel plans. She was your typical teenager in the sense, like TikTok was, I always like to say, was our travel concierge.
It's hilarious.
Because, she would go on there and go, oh, this restaurant looks aesthetic and this location looks aesthetic. And because she was an artist, she had an artist's eye. Everything was about the photograph or the aesthetic background and how, she was very attuned to detail. And so that trip, she thought, oh gosh, this is perfect. We're going to go to the mountains. I'm going to wear a cowboy hat. I'm going to have cowboy boots.
Right.
And this is just Jackson Hole checks every box. So we'd never been there. So it was just a girls' trip, Sammy, Ava, and I, and it's supposed to be 3 days. And I know. And she had planned all the activities that we did. The day before was the most perfect day. And the girls were getting along beautifully. And when you just feel like everyone's in sync?
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments. We went to this beautiful lake that she had scoped out on TikTok in the Grand Tetons, and it had this clear, calm water, and it was just pristine. And on our way there that day, we came upon this incredible farmhouse, and we stopped there, and that was the perfect place to take 1,000 photos. Sammy would take 1,000 photos to get that one perfect shot.
I relate. I do that too.
You do that too?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Drives my family crazy.
it would drive us crazy. But at the end of the day, you have your amazing photo, right?
Yep.
And so, we got out of the car and we took photos, and they were taking photos of each other and the background and the colors and everything. And it's just like, that's the cover page. That's the photo we have for the foundation and for her website. Yeah. And it was a moment in time that was captured. That was just a beautiful time. It was just happy. And then the next day, it was just a nightmare. We were on a guided tour, ATVing. We had never been before, and she wanted to go on. And maybe part of it was she just wanted to push herself a little bit outside of her comfort zone and do something a little adventurous. And if we're on a guided tour, why would you think that? You're not going on your own, and you're not like in the mountains on just, your own trail. We're with an expert, we thought, and we were with 11 people. It wasn't like it was, 3 or 4 people and that was it. So it was a large tour, and we didn't have any reason to be worried in any way, because the tour guide was very kind of nonchalant and lackadaisical about, the instructions and the safety things and all of that. It was kind of like, this is how you operate the ATV, let's go. And it was just, the views were spectacular, and what we got to see, and got a lot of photos then too. And, it was towards the end of the tour, and then the accident happened and we didn't see it. But we came upon her after, and just, all of that, when you're a part of an experience like that and you see it, it's out of body.
Out of body. That's what I was just thinking. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that you're just, at least, like in that situation, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we have to do something. Like, how are we going to save her? How are we going to manage this? What are our options? It's like, as moms, we go into like mom mode.
Right.
And we're trying to do everything we can in our power to protect them and not have this happen.
Yeah.
And when there's nothing you can do. I mean, once we were at the hospital, they told us that there was so much impact to the brain. It was she had hit her head. We think the ATV like flipped on her, and she was wearing a helmet. And the helmet was cracked. And so, but she still suffered a traumatic brain injury. And once we were at the hospital, we went to a trauma center, and they said there's nothing they can do. That moment when you hear those words, I mean, you heard those words too.
Yeah.
It's just out of body. You just can't, you're not processing.
No.
It's like you're watching a movie that is happening to you, but you can't believe you're the actors in that movie, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And your situation too. I mean, you heard those words after, holding on hope for so long. And
I heard those words after they told me that she was definitely going to wake up and that she was going to be fine. So it was like,
my gosh.
I mean, the guy who was in charge there, the attending doctor, was like, I said, I'm so scared she's not going to wake up. And he looked at me like, what? He said, there's always a possibility she won't wake up. Like if the building collapsed and we had an earthquake and the building collapsed on all of us, she might not wake up. So, that's the level of like
those were
assuredness they were giving us.
Yeah,
and so that's what we were
odds.
telling our kids.
Yeah.
And then to have to tell them, I'm sorry, everything changed. Like she's not going to wake up. And I have so much regret over that, especially for Nate. Like, because when we had to go home and tell him the news, that was even more painful somehow. Like, because he was it was like a primal scream. Like,
wow.
You never, ever want to hear that, ever. And he wasn't, we had started preparing him by that time, but still, it's like, but you said, she was going to be okay. She was going to wake up,
Right. And then there's just like that trust, you didn't, that's what they told you. So you were holding out hope. And so that's what you were going to believe. And yeah, that was really hard.
It's unimaginable.
No.
Was your husband there? Like, how did that all happen? He came out immediately, obviously, right? And joined you at the hospital?
Yes. So I called him from the mountain. Luckily, we had cell service. And I called him from the mountain, and he immediately got on a plane and made his way there. She ended up having to be airlifted to East Idaho Falls, which is a trauma center, about 30 minutes over the mountains. And so he got there actually before we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It took us 3.5 hours through a windy single lane road that they just opened a month before to get there. So you can imagine it was
the torture
excruciating.
Of that. Oh my God.
Yeah. That ride there was excruciating.
Just you and Ava, and someone drove you?
The deputy, the sheriff drove us. And, I kept asking her, what is the update? What do they know? Because she was in contact with the hospital. And, whatever she was trying to give us hope, to tell us, well, they're working on this, they're working on that. They still don't know anything, but she's in good hands, that kind of thing.
Right.
And we were still holding out hope. We still thought that, she had a heartbeat and she had a pulse.
Yeah.
So we thought, in my mind, I thought, okay, we can do something about this.
Yes.
Not knowing, about
that.
the head injury. So it was just agonizing. And then when we got there, obviously they brought us in to tell us what had happened. And when she wasn't in the operating room, at that point, my husband knew, like, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And we had to come out of the room and tell Ava. And it's just like going through this. There's so many different layers and so many different versions of trauma and triggers that you relive all the time.
Over and over and over.
Over and over and over. And that's, I think, maybe what people don't fully recognize unless you're going through it or you're in it, is all the little things. For example, listening to a song on the radio in your car, and that, could have been their favorite song. And so that, those memories come rushing in and bringing right back there. Or I have found, I don't know if you have found this, going to the supermarket.
Oh, the supermarket's the absolute worst.
The worst.
Absolute worst. I had to abandon my cart several times, and I was grateful for like Instacart and stuff like that because I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
There were just, you're, because I think part of it is like, you're kind of on autopilot in the supermarket and you go to reach for something. And for me, it was like the split peas because Molly loves split pea soup and no one else in my family will touch it.
Yeah.
And I would go to reach for those because I would always buy them for her because she was a vegetarian. And then I just be like, oh my God, I don't need split peas anymore. And yeah, so it's just like these things can create like a tsunami of grief that overcomes you. And I guess maybe that's one thing that's changed over the years is that has become less, those have become less powerful in their ability to just like completely take me under. Like there were times in that first and second year where I felt like those triggers could pop up and like just take me away almost. And I could barely manage to swim back to shore from those,
Yeah. And then you'd go home and you had to be mom to two children.
Gosh, yeah.
And still pull yourself together.
And sometimes it would happen with them present, I mean, sometimes things would of course happen and they'd be there, and that was hard, I mean, I had to tamp down my grief, especially in the immediate aftermath, because of my family. And I don't know if that, I don't know what the answer is for that, because I know like there was a time every night when I would go to bed, and I went to bed increasingly late because it was just so hard for me. That's when everything would like overcome me, and I would look for Molly in the doorway like she was every night. Mom, can you say goodnight to me? Can you tuck me in bed? Like she would always want me to lay with her before she went to sleep, and I would just stare at my doorway and wait for her, and so every night when I would get into bed, I would just sob, like wail, like cry, and just, and my husband was like, I can't take it. I can't handle this. Like, you have to stop.
So what did you do? And
I made myself stop.
Wow.
Like, and I mean, to his defense, it's not like it was like, 1 or 2 days. It was like, it was going on. Like, and it was not good for the boys too to see me crying all the time either. I mean, it's to a certain extent, yes, it's very healthy to model being able to cry and to talk about your emotions and talk about all of that.
Yeah.
And like I told you, when I would be on those grief groups and I would walk out and they would see me, like just my whole face was, red and puffy, and I'm just an absolute mess. And it's like, to a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, I mean, or, no, it was older and he was 10. They can't handle it.
No.
Because they miss their sister, and like they need someone to be okay for them.
That's right. And that's absolutely true. And so in some ways you have to pull yourself together and for them, and that maybe also saves you from not going into that dark tunnel. Because
100%.
You have to do it. So you do it.
Yes.
And that really kind of gets you out of bed every day.
100%.
And Rod and I have not, and Ava have not stayed in bed a day since Sammy's passed.
Same.
Okay, so it's like you get
it's not
up.
possible.
Yeah, no, you have to get up, facing the day as hard as it is. You need to do it, and I feel doing it for them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they would want us to get up and live, and and just do life. Yeah. They can't, so we have to do it for them too.
Absolutely.
And I do really feel like they're proud of us because we are doing that. Yeah. And we're doing something in their name that helps people.
I got like these like goosebumps all over when you were saying that, and I felt like, they're proud of us. Like, we're right here, Yeah. And I think our kids, in some ways, they're together too. Like, and they know, like, I felt like early on when Nikki Mark showed up at my door and she's like, Tommy brought me here, It's like, I think that's real. I really do. I think that they are like our guardian angels, and that they are really like still active in many ways, more active than ever, like, parts of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And guiding us every day. And on the other side, like you said, as our guardian angels, probably making things happen.
I think so.
And I think that's where a lot of the belief in spirituality comes from, and really can help you feel, if you frame it that way, if it resonates with you. It doesn't for everyone.
Right.
That they're still very much here. They're not in their physical body form, but they're still, their spirit, their soul is still very much alive. And that brings so much comfort.
100%.
And I'm sure you felt this way also after Molly I was always spiritual before, but not to this deep level. And what this has shown me is I have this intense curiosity about learning about the afterlife, and learning that life does continue on after, and how that is and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And just kind of diving into that whole, almost like education.
Me too.
Doesn't it feel like comforting in a lot of ways?
I definitely went on a journey in terms of learning and studying and reading, and I couldn't keep my focus on a lot of I love to read, and I always have, but I found it hard to keep my focus on a lot of material, except for that.
Yes.
And I listened to audiobooks, and I just definitely, because it's fascinating, actually. It's leaning into death. Like, lean into death and learn about it. It's actually so interesting. And, we both have been to mediums and different like spiritual healer type people. One of the ones I went to, Ken Klee, was this bankruptcy lawyer who got into becoming a spiritual healer because he went to a business conference where he had shoulder pain, and he had Reiki done at this business conference, and it took away his pain, and he couldn't believe it. So he just went on this deep dive into learning and studying for 40 years. And so by the time he just retired from his practice, so by the time I got to him, I was fortunate to see him shortly before he retired. I was so blown away by the level of like in-depth expertise and knowledge, and just like really, really well-researched everything that he had in his space, and everything he knew, and all of this. And I was like, okay, this guy, I knew who he was because he's like the godfather of bankruptcy law.
Oh,
like
okay.
He's like this renowned lawyer.
Yeah.
And totally analytical, this brilliant mind, and spiritual healer, and like so matter of fact in everything he says, and all of his teachings and all of his learnings. And it's just like, wow, that's so interesting.
Absolutely. And to have that analytical mind and be like the lawyer on one end, and then be this, etheric spiritual healer on the other.
We met at a dinner, and he was like, your daughter, she sits right on your left shoulder.
Oh, wow.
Very matter of fact. And it was kind of random. I was even at that dinner.
And right out of the gates, he just said that.
I knew he was a lawyer. I knew him as a lawyer. And I didn't even know about his spiritual healing work. And my husband somehow did.
Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is unbelievable. And when he said that, was that your first kind of foray into the spiritual space, or were you a believer before?
No, this was recent. This was more recent. No, I wasn't necessarily so into it or anything before, but like you, I was. I had a medium reading when my grandmother died. And so I was interested, but I didn't have a reason to like need to know what happened to my kid. Right? It's like, I need to know where my child is.
Yes.
So that is obviously a completely different situation. So I then got into it. I saw Robert Brown, the medium that we were talking about, who I thought was amazing. And I know you saw recently.
He was incredible.
I mean.
And talk about mediums. I know you've seen a few others as well. I don't want to say it's like I can't get enough, but I find it so healing, and so many have different, their styles are different, and I get something new from each one. So each reading provides something different, and it's just fascinated about that. Absolutely. And I know a lot of the mediums will say, you don't need me to communicate with your child.
Yes.
You can do it. Everybody has access.
Yeah, right.
It's just knowing how, maybe just settling in meditatively and calling it in and finding the right channel, finding the right frequency.
Right.
Yeah. And then we can all do it. And I hope to get to that at some point where I could just hear her and have conversations in my head, or, I do feel her though. I don't, I feel lucky because I did right away, and I still do. Like I can feel, my hair, like touching my hair, or I'll feel something on my arm. And with signs, she sends like yellow butterflies all the time, which is why I wear this necklace. And that was right away. Yeah. The signs. I mean, the songs on the radio, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, but then other things like with time too. I don't know if you find, if Molly sends you those signs, but 8 became Sammy's number.
Right.
It really, she didn't have a favorite number before, but she passed on 8-8. And 8 sideways is the infinity sign.
Right, yes.
And it also, like if you take Samantha, so the first letter of her name is an S.
Right.
And if you do 2 S's, it creates an 8.
Right.
So like all these things
absolutely
that make sense.
Yeah.
And for 8. And so I see it 8 all the time, everywhere we go.
Right.
And it's stuff you cannot make up.
I will tell you, I do see it with the time, but it's very interesting. The thing I always see is Nate's birthday. And I feel like, and it's so frequent that I'm like, this is something. And I feel like it's reminding me that like he's here and he needs me. He needs my focus. You know what I mean? And and I'm reminded to do that.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of stuff related to Molly and the foundation and all of that. And I feel like it's reminding me like, she's okay.
Yeah.
She's good.
She's good.
She's good. And
she's good.
He needs your focus.
Yes. Well, that's a really interesting point that you say that, because it is very true. I had a friend who lost her brother at 20, and she was around 15 at the time. And when everything happened with Sammy, she was really supportive, reaching out and sending books and writing notes and checking in. And I thought it was really interesting because she said that she found that her parents were so consumed by the grief of their their child who had passed, that they focused on that so much. And she almost became resentful in some way. Like, me and my brother are still here.
Right.
We're still living. Yeah. We're around. So please be here for us too.
Yeah.
We need you.
Yeah.
And so I always try to remember that when we go into Sammy's world a lot.
Right.
No, Ava's here.
Yeah.
Ava needs us, and we need to focus on her because she has her life to live. She deserves to live her life, and she deserves to have her parents here.
Definitely.
So Rod and I have really tried to make a conscious effort to not talk about Sammy so much around her unless she wants to.
Right.
It's still very hard for her to go there. I know she thinks about her every day,
right.
But I think it's very hard for her to go, to get to the place where she's like, Sammy, love this ice cream. Let's get this ice cream, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so she's in college right now, and we're just so proud of her, and that she's really blown us away in the sense that she is able to do college. She's done in 1 month, so her freshman year will be behind her.
Amazing.
And she didn't just do college, she thrived.
Amazing.
She joined a sorority.
Her.
She loves her roommates.
Great.
She's made friends, and things that we were really worried about.
Right.
You know, is she going to be able to do this? Are we going to get the phone call and she'll have to come home?
Right.
And, I hope, that doesn't happen. But if it happens, it happens. It's a part of her journey. But at least for now, we feel like she's just being so strong. Yeah. And I know she's feeling it too on her own, but she's grieving and honoring Sammy quietly, but it's still happening.
Yes.
And I think, not everyone has to talk about it to be healing.
My kids were, Molly and Nate were so competitive. They were close in age. And when people started sending all these things to the house, like related to Molly, people painted pictures of her and did all of this beautiful, beautiful stuff. But he was like, what is this? Like, what? Wait, why is she getting all of this? And so one of the great things about having like a space for the foundation is like we can keep that there
Yes.
because our house was turning into a bit of a shrine.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I am really proud of our surviving kids. And so maybe as we wrap up, because I could talk to you forever, just like Nikki Mark when she was here, I could have gone for hours. I have so much more I want to talk to you about.
Yes.
Maybe we'll dedicate this episode to our surviving kids who are thriving and we're so proud of. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's important, kind of how, you show up and parent after all this, because you're different.
Yeah.
You're a different person. But you still have to show up for your kids who are here and they need us to do that. And I think also, you made a good point about putting the foundation, there's that space for Molly, and you just put that over there. And that is so much about what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And, but through that, with the art kits that we're doing and the paint kits, and that keeps evolving, and we're working with patients in hospitals and schools and just different organizations. And what's so interesting, because it was important to SAMI, and so it's important for us to keep that something that she loves so much out there in the world, which is music and art, and how art really transforms people.
It's true.
And it's something as simple as putting a paintbrush and some paint in someone's hands, and how therapeutic that can be, and meditative and healing. And so many of the schools, when they go through budget cuts and, different organizations, art is always the first to be cut. And I think there's just, art it goes with mental health.
Absolutely. Well, we were in Japan. We took an anime, like manga drawing class for the kids. The person who really enjoyed that the most was my husband. And it's like, this is really like an outlet. And he drew actually this beautiful portrait of like an anime girl, and he called it Manga Molly, and it's actually really good. I think like he didn't plan on being into that. He just sat down because the travel agent booked it for the four of us. It was for Eli, but he ended up really loving it. So I think you're totally right about that. And I'm like a busy bee, like constantly moving, going, doing all these things, and so it's like I have to schedule things to bring me to like sit down and do something like that, which I think is part of the reason why it's harder for me to connect myself with Molly, because it's hard for me to slow down and be quiet and be still.
Right.
So that's like something I'm trying to work on.
I'm right there with you. And so much of that too is what saved SAMI in a lot of ways. When school, friends, whatever got to be a lot for her, that was an outlet that she really locked into, and she would just put on her headphones and play her favorite soundtracks. And she has her playlist that she curated, and she would always take over the music in the cars whenever we were driving.
Right.
And so she would listen to her playlist and just lock in and just create. And a lot of the art that she made, we don't know where it came from, the inspiration from that. She would just get these downloads.
Right.
And so much of it, when I look at them now, so much of that is spiritual. She did a lot of eyes.
Right.
Eyes being the window of the souls. And the detail that she went into to create that, or nature, she worked on, she was getting into
Her art's
like
amazing.
the bodies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Where can people go and see some of her art?
So if they go to the website, it's just samiliber.com.
Okay. And it's LIBR. We'll put that, BER.
Yes.
We'll put that in the show notes, and all the information about the foundation, how people can support, and hopefully people can go on and see some of SAMI's work, because it really is very special and impressive.
Thank you
and I
so
love
much.
sharing it with my kids and talking about SAMI.
Thank you so much. It's such a gift. I really appreciate it. And talking with you today has been such a gift.
For me too.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you to Carla and to SAMI. We know she's here too with Molly. And thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow this show and leave us a review. And next time, we'll see you here on The Obliterated Place. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.